It's Friday night. We are less than 3 weeks away, just 20 days away from the NFL draft. I like the NFL draft more than I like Christmas, so it's a big deal for me. I have some few quick announcements. I'm in the process of making my video for my latest mock draft. It's going to be a 1-round mock draft with trades. I have a huge trade coming in this one that I've never before revealed. Really excited about that. Tuesday's show, I'm going to have Big Chief Sean. He's agreed to come on. I've reached out to Keaton Talk Sports, and Keaton has said that, Dan, your draft videos are so much better than mine, and you're so much better looking than I am. So I'm intimidated to come on and do a live mock draft. But me and Big Chief Sean are on board, and I'm trying to see if Keaton, because last show on Tuesday, he said he was down for an interactive mock. So hopefully we can do an interactive mock with 2 other YouTubers on Tuesday. Really excited about that. I'm glad we got some comments in already because I really want to talk about this in some detail. The Trek Reviewer, welcome, brother. Trek Reviewer is a Bills fan. Big trade for the Bills, maybe another for Harrison Jr. You're not. I would be. So here's the deal. The Bills have 10 draft picks total, but 7 of them are in the 4th, 5th, and 6th round. They don't have a pick in the 3rd, and they only have 1 in the first 2 rounds. Could the Bills trade up? Yeah, I'm almost thinking they do the opposite, though, the Trek Reviewer. Take a page out of the Rams playbook. And now the Rams didn't trade out of round 1, but what they did is they had, I think it ended up being something crazy like 15 draft picks or something insane, but they had a lot of rookies play last year that played well, but a lot of them were later round picks. I could see Buffalo trading up but not making a big splash like that. ESPN showed something about Brandon Ayuk. I saw something on social media. Brandon Ayuk was in trade talks to Baltimore. Now there's rumors that Brandon Ayuk may be to Buffalo. I think it might be more likely, though, that Buffalo would trade out of round 1 and get really creative in rounds 2, 3, and 4. And instead of getting like a Marvin Harrison Jr. in my latest mock draft, by the way, do check it out. I got the Bills getting Xavier Legette. And I did have the Houston Texans trading for a wide receiver. I just thought it would be T. Higgins. By the way, I have a hard time believing the Bills and Bengals would make a move, but T. Higgins is a guy that I think could be gone, and that would be another move that I would make. But I don't think you're going to trade up in the 1st round. I think instead, take a look at what the Green Bay Packers did, and I encourage Chiefs fans to look at what the Packers did, because a lot of Chiefs fans want a receiver in the 1st round, but what Green Bay did is they took a receiver in rounds 2, 5, and 7, and they took a pair of tight ends. Latavian Sanders, tight end out Texas. He's probably going to be available when you pick 2nd. When if you put him with Dalton Kincaid, who's now really your wide receiver number 1. Matt Collins is a guy I really liked with the Raiders. He went to Atlanta last year, didn't do much, but he's a guy I liked. Drawing a blank on the kid's name, Shakur something. Khalil Shakur, he was a 5th round pick I really liked. Curtis Samuel's a player that I also really liked. It's kind of funny because a lot of people feel like, Bills don't have anything at receiver, but They have a little bit, and I don't think you need to make a big move. So I get what you're saying, and I get why you would want a big move. If I'm the Bills, I'm be more inclined to trade out of round one and make some moves later in the draft, not make a move for what I call the big three. So, but that's the whole point of this show is to talk about discussions and see what people think. Funk, welcome, brother. So with the way the Texans are going balls deep this offseason, they'd be the first team to actually win the whole thing after going big in the free agent period. It's funny because I really like what the Texans are doing, and the Texans. I thought it was a little crazy that they traded out of round one because I thought that they could have added somebody at 23 instead giving that pick to Minnesota, but getting the second round pick next year might put them in a really good position to make them the dominant team of the North, which I think they are now. And by the way, the thing about the Houston Texans and what they did in the draft last year, remember they gave up a first and a third so they can get Will Anderson, and the NFL is a copycat league. So I'm really expecting there to be a team that make a big move in this draft to trade up early, just like the Texans did. I say that because look at what the Texans did. They went from a 3-win team to a team that went and won a playoff game last year. Is there a team? Take a look at the top 10. Take a look at the top 10. Okay. Yeah. You have Chicago that has picks 1 and 9. They have a good defense. Is there a way Chicago can go from being a team that has number 1 pick in the draft to a team that wins a playoff game or two next year? Washington's exploded in free agency. What if New England's offense was just middle of the pack? Is that a team that can make the playoffs? Maybe. Arizona has 7 picks in the first 103, or is it 104? 104. 7. What if they get 4 new starters and Kyler Murray plays the whole year? The Chargers, who knows what they're going to do at 5? They're an interesting team. Let's say Daniel Jones comes back and makes a big move. What if Neighbors, your number 1 wide receivers there at 6? That's a possibility. Is there a possibility that the Giants make a big move, pick Neighbors at 6, and then maybe trade back into the first round, get a player to help them out more this year? Remember, they got Ryan Burns. The team I would say it's most likely is Tennessee, even though they've spent a lot of money in free agency. I'm not as high on Tennessee as I think a lot of people are, but they've spent a lot of money, made a lot of moves. Atlanta's a team. Hey, you got Cousins. How good could they be? I already talked about Chicago. The Jets at 10. The Jets at 10. And Slasher, welcome Slasher. He says, I feel like the Jets with a healthy Rodgers are a better team, especially with that defense. And he also says, am I dumb for saying the Diggs move doesn't really move me? No, you're not. You're not dumb at all. And Funk's not wrong either by saying that the Texans could win the whole thing. The reason why is that here's what the Houston Texans did. And this is the thing that's so fun about the draft. Let's go back and look at last year's draft. You have 2 teams. You have the Carolina Panthers and you have the Houston Texans. The Carolina Panthers gave up draft capital, DJ Moore, and they took Bryce Young. They brought in Frank Wright, an experienced coach who has an offensive background. And what happened? Wright didn't last a whole year. Bryce Young showed flashes, but I mean, I'll be honest with you. If the Panthers win 3 or 4 games this year, look at Kenny Pickett. Look at Justin Fields. There may be especially if Carolina gets a new head coach, they may be saying, we tried Bryce Young, didn't work. Then take a look at the Houston Texans. They get their quarterback, they go with a defensive-minded coach, and then they make a big, bold move for a defensive player. The difference is one team got it right with the quarterback and coach, one team got it wrong. So I'm gonna touch base on this because I think the Houston Texans are now the favorite to win the AFC South. I was leaning towards Jacksonville, but I thought firing the defense coordinator may be a knee-jerk reaction. They get Gabe Davis from Buffalo, but they lose Stephen Ridley or Calvin Ridley. I always get those two mixed up. No, I don't think that's a plus. Mixon's an improvement at running back, even though I like Devin Singletary. I'm a Devin Singletary fan. I really am. But Mixon's an improvement. Now you add Diggs. And by the way, I want to be very clear. Both of you guys are right. I think both of you guys are right here, and I'll tell you why. Diggs is going to be the number 2 receiver in Houston. He might be thinking he's going to be the elite number 1 guy. He's not. That's Nico Johnson. Hopefully I got that name right. I love this kid coming out of Michigan. I wanted the Chiefs to get him. He's the number 1 receiver. Diggs is going to be a number 2 guy. And he's going to be a free agent next year. So Houston, even though they remember, Houston has Minnesota's second-round pick for next year. So the Diggs move doesn't have to move you, but it makes the Houston Texans the team to beat in the South. And you know how many teams have won 3 Super Bowls in a row? 0. There's a reason for that. I do agree that the Jets are a better team than Buffalo. Are the Jets a better team with a healthy Rodgers than Houston? I don't know. A lot of Chiefs fans feel like they're in the driver's seat. I'm not seeing that. I'll be honest with you. I think the Jets might be my favorite to win the AFC with a healthy Rodgers in that defense and Mike Williams, because they have an opportunity. I mean, they already fixed their offensive line, but they also have a top 10 pick. I forgot they have a top 10 pick too. They have a chance to get Brock Bowers, so I think it's the second best quote-unquote receiver in this draft behind MHJR. You're not alone. A good buddy of mine, he did a mock draft, and even though he liked my Olufasinu pick, who I still think is the best, I still think the Jets really want to address offensive line, but what if the Jets take Brock Bowers at 10? You added Mike Williams. You fix the offensive line. Yeah. The Bills could take their number 1 this year and next year, plus one of their second rounder next year, to Arizona for a 2024 first overall, 4th overall. They give Arizona 27 and 28 this year. Yeah, but I just don't see Arizona really buying that. And the reason why is that Arizona's number 1 hole is wide receiver, and they'll be able to get their number 1 guy off the board. I understand your logic. There's no reason that the Cardinals would make that move because their biggest hole is wide receiver. I would actually take the Bills receiving core as is over the Cardinals receiving core as is. So there's no way Arizona does this. And so look at team number 3, New England. Do you think New England's going to trade with Buffalo? But here's where things could get fun. You could maybe make a move with the Chargers at 5. And that's if you like a Duze let's say this. Let's say Arizona at 4 as neighbors rated higher. Harbaugh, says, oh my God, MH, McCarthy is, nobody's making a big enough move for McCarthy. Maybe, I mean, you never know with the draft. I mean, maybe McCarthy's already off the board. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. 4 doesn't make sense for Arizona to make that move. 5 makes sense, but you would give up number 1 this year and number 1 next year and maybe your second rounder. That would make more sense. However, in this scenario, is there a team that's willing to make the Chargers a better deal? Maybe. But Arizona, no, that move makes no sense for Arizona, because Arizona, their wide receiving core is probably the worst in football. The Bills' receiving core is, as much as I've seen people make fun of it, it's not that bad. Matt Collins is not a bad player. He had a bad year. I watched him with the Raiders. I was like, this guy's not bad. Curtis Samuel, I know I think this is his 4th team, but he's a guy that can play. I always thought his best role was that you use him as a hybrid running back receiver. The team that did the best a couple of years ago was Washington, and then they kind of went away from it. Khalil Shakur is a guy with talent, but that move doesn't make sense for Arizona. You may be able to talk the Chargers into doing it, but I would look, if you want to move down the line, what you're probably looking at is making a move for Brian Thomas Jr. out of LSU. And I would look at maybe somewhere in the teens. And you have the Saints at 14, which don't have a pick in rounds 3 or 4. And they have holes. A trade to 14 would make that trade that you're talking about, a first and a second this year might be enough, just that alone, to get to 14 for somebody like Brian Thomas Jr. You may have to give up like a next year's second, and a team like the Saints might be interested in taking a pick for next year. The Colts at 15, I mean, they're loaded at receiver. So they're probably they have holes at defensive back, and that's what I've had mocked to the Colts, even though they signed Blackman. He's on a 1-year deal. They could still draft the safety. They're not going to take a safety at 15. So, but the Colts might be interested in taking a safety at 27. So a move like that would make a lot of sense. Seattle at 16, I've been mocking trades down because Seattle desperately wants to trade down. That would be a team that I would really target. And by the way, you wouldn't have to give up a 2025. You could probably give Seattle a 1 and a 2 and get up to 16. But Arizona, there's no way Arizona's making that pick, because Arizona desperately needs a receiver. Every single mock, I've toyed around with Arizona trading down. And Corey, aka the Red Sea, hopefully he comes into the chat, because I'm going to say this because I would love to see what his opinion is, and I already know what it is. He's DM'd me, and he says, if the Cardinals trade out of 4, I'm going to lose my freaking mind. So yeah. But here's the thing. I'm not trying to discourage you about throwing out trade talks, because I think Buffalo could be very creative in this draft. They have a lot of picks late in this draft, and there could be some teams that say, you know what, we need some late round picks. I'm looking at a team like maybe Chicago. Chicago only has 4 picks in the draft. Would Chicago be interested in trading a 4th round pick for like a 5 and a 6? Yeah. So keep that in mind. But I'm shooting down to Arizona, because that trade doesn't do anything for Arizona, and Arizona desperately needs a wide receiver. Every mock draft I've had Marvin Harrison Jr. Well, let me rephrase that. Since Chicago traded Fields, I've had quarterback Marvin Harrison Jr. at Arizona at 4. So, but you never know. Fong says, I would have thought Atlanta would have been a threat if they added Goff on this offseason. Cousins and Goff are almost the same guy. I'll be honest with you. I think either or makes Atlanta the team to beat in the South. I think Atlanta has to be the team to beat in the South, even though I don't know why I can't get that right. It seems like this camera is just slightly off, and it's driving me nuts. Tampa Bay's added some pieces, but I know they've won the South the last couple of years. I have a hard time looking at Atlanta, and keep in mind Atlanta at 8. I think they could take the first defensive player off the board. Whoever they have is rated highest. I think it's Dallas Turner, but it doesn't. Chiefs, Jets, Ravens, Texans. I honestly, it's hard to say because the Ravens beat the Texans week 1 and in the playoffs, but they've lost a lot and the Texans have added. So I could see that. And by the way, you do have to put the Chiefs at number 1 because they are the back-to-back Super Bowl winning teams. But when I look at the AFC, Keaton last week, I think it was last week, 2 weeks ago, said, give me a team that scares Kansas City the most. I was like, it's easily the Jets. So I didn't say the Texans would. I've asked them to be the first team to go this crazy in free agency to actually do this. You know what? I want to tell you, there's another team that's gone nuts in free agency and it's won a Super Bowl. The Rams made a bunch of trades and got to the Super Bowl. I know. You know what? I'm not sure. I think the Texans. The thing is, it's Nico Collins. Did I get what did I say? I said Nico Johnson, didn't I? I'm so bad with names. But he's wide receiver number 1, not Diggs. And hopefully Diggs is smart enough to realize that because I know when he realized he was the number 2 wide receiver in Minnesota and he slipped below Thielen and he's like, oh, I'm leaving. I don't want to be number 2. So, by the way, I could see Houston winning because bottom line, even though the Titans have made a lot of moves, I don't think that they're a threat. The Colts, I love Anthony Richardson's upside, but you don't know. Jacksonville, if anything, I think is almost taking a minor step back. So, yeah, Houston should be a 12-win team. I would say 11-12, but I get what you're saying. Keaton Talk Sports, man, welcome, Keaton. By the way, I sent you a message on Instagram. Big Chief Sean wants to do an interactive draft on Tuesday, and I would love nothing more than for you to come on and offer your opinion, even though you've been adamant that my drafts are so much better than yours and that I'm way better looking. You say that all the time. I still want you to come on, so check your DMs. Big Chief Sean's coming on, so definitely would love to do a live interactive mock draft with you and Big Chief Sean, so let me know. Keaton Talk Sports joins the show here. I didn't realize how behind on comments I was, so he posted this about over 10 minutes ago. Sorry about that, guys. Sup, Dan? Sup, everyone? I think the Bills would take a big step back in 2024. This would be a big year for Allen. See if he's still a top 5 quarterback. First 2 years in the league, he was nothing before Diggs got there. It's a lot of things, and you're right. He was a below average starter. Then Diggs get there, but part of that was they had Brian Dable there. as the offensive coordinator, they kept some stability. They had a really good plan in play to bring Josh Allen along. And part of that was bringing in a number one wide receiver. I think Dalton Kincaid is a guy that I would circle and have a big year. And you saw it from the Trek review where it's like, hey, man, maybe the Bills, because they have a lot of draft capital, maybe this is the year they trade up and get a wide receiver. I don't think 4 is realistic, but 9's a possibility. Brian Thomas Jr., who a lot of people are really, really high on, maybe available somewhere like 13, 14, 16 Seattle. I think Seattle definitely wants to trade down. What the Rams did last year with all those draft picks, none in the first round, is they rebuilt their roster. That game against Detroit was a great game. They came very close to beating the Lions. If they get by Detroit, off the top of my head, I'm drawing a blank how it would go, but who they would have played, but I know Tampa Bay would have came in. So Tampa Bay won. So the Rams would have traveled to Tampa. Is that correct? Yeah. Yeah, because San Francisco is the 1 seed, so San Francisco, yeah. So let's just have some fun. Let's just have some fun. The Rams, if they beat Detroit, would they have gone and beaten Tampa Bay in Tampa? I think so. Then you have the Rams and the Niners playing in the NFC Championship. That's a coin flip. It really is, because McVay, these two teams know each other. I think San Francisco would have won, but Buffalo has hit the reset button. They realized what they did. And their biggest problem, it wasn't Diggs. It's really the Von Miller contract. Remember, they gave him, it was like 5 or 6 years, $120 million. I don't think he got sacked last year. He's not the same guy. He's 36 or 35. He's not the same dude. I'm curious how Diggs operates in Houston, because he's the number 2 guy. He's not the number 1 guy. And Tank Dell was playing really, really good football. So Diggs will go from being the number 2 guy to maybe the number 3 guy, but he adds something to that team. I think it says something for Houston, because not really for Houston, but I think a lot of NFL teams are going to be looking in the top 10 specifically. And they're going to say, you know what Houston did? Houston went from being a 3-win team to 2 years later being not only the AFC South favorite, where's the comment at? To maybe being the 3rd best team in the AFC. Slasher doesn't have a dog in the fight. Look at that thumbnail. You know he's an Eagles fan, and here we are. We're talking about the Texans 2 years removed from being a 2-win team. So what does this happen? So what does this mean? What does this mean? It means that this is how you do it. There's a blueprint. The NFL is a copycat league. So there's going to be these teams in the top 10. There's going to be one of these teams that's going to say, what move can I make trading back into the first round that I can get somebody that I can go from being a 3-win team to a team that wins a playoff game to maybe a team that's ready for a Super Bowl in 2 years? Somebody's going to make a move like this. It could be multiple teams. I just went through the top 10. I could also make the same case for the Detroit Lions. Well, how long was it? 3 years ago. Remember what was it? 09-1, and then what was it? 3 years later. It was an 010. No, 2 years later, wasn't it? They started off 010-1, then 07-9. Then it was a quarter and a half away from playing a team in Kansas City that you already beat. This is a fun time because there's a blueprint. The Lions, I mean, you could say, I can look at the Lions. I can now look at the Texans. You can go from being one of the worst teams in football to one of the best, and here's how. Take a look at what the Detroit Lions did. Take a look at what the Houston Texans did. Can you take a rookie quarterback and win a game in the playoffs? The Houston Texans did. There's a lot of people out there. I am not one of them. But there's a lot of people out there that thinks Caleb Williams is a better prospect than C.J. Stroud. There's a lot of people. There's a lot of well-respected scouts and coaches that are going to tell you that Caleb Williams coming out of USC was better than C.J. Stroud. There was a lot of people that said Bryce Young was better than C.J. Stroud. I was not one of them. But there was a lot of people that said that. So I'm behind on comments here. So I'm gonna let me see here. Okay. By the way, I apologize. I'm ranting. I had an energy drink earlier, but I'm drinking coffee today. This is a good one. I want the Eagles to trade for John Mechie. He played with the Devontae Smith and Nose Hurts. I think he would be perfect number 3 for us. He seems like the odd man out of that bunch of receivers. Wow. You know, it's funny because in my last mock draft video, I had T. Higgins going to Houston, said they went with Diggs, but a guy like Mechie makes a lot of sense for Houston to move that guy. And to tell you the truth, I'm looking at the Eagles. I know they have 2 second-round picks. That would be high. They don't have a third. Yeah, I should have just gone to ESPN, which is easier. But let me see here. What do they have? Because if I'm the Houston Texans, I don't know if I take a future pick because you already have a 2, so I don't see that. You could do something crazy like the Texans pick number 86. So you could do something crazy. Philly picks 50 and 53. So what you could do, and I think this would be a win, 53 for 86 and Mechie. And if you're the Houston Texans, you just make the flip-flop. Hopefully that made sense. I could see how it wouldn't, but hopefully it did. Basically, I could see Philly saying, hey, look, we'll move 2 for your 3. If you're using a point scale, I'm using old Jimmy Johnson point chart. It would be 210 points, which is a high third round, which would be pick number 76. And then you get Mechie in return. That actually makes a lot of sense. And I'll be honest with you, if I'm the Houston Texans, after making this move, moving Mechie would make a lot of sense. It didn't really work out. I mean, battling cancer, that's not his fault, but why wasn't he a bigger part of the offense last year? I remember watching the game against Baltimore, and I remember Baltimore's defense kind of shutting them down. I'm drawing a blank. Maybe he was injured. You tell me. I don't remember him playing well. But yeah. Do you think OBJ goes to Buffalo now? And Buffalo picked up the Vikings 2025 second round pick from Houston in the Diggs deal. Yeah, they did, and I don't think OBJ goes to Buffalo. I really don't because I got you a second. Yeah, I got you a second. So what? I don't think he does. I really think that what Buffalo wants to do is they're looking at, okay, here's what you have in Buffalo. Okay, you signed La'el Collins, all right, not a bad move, by the way. Osiris Torrance, one of my draft crushes. You got him on the offensive line. You signed, I think it was Dawkins to a 3-year extension. All right, so you have Dalton Kincaid. You have James Cook, went to a Pro Bowl, played some really, really, really good football. Okay, you got rid of a lot of older players on the defense, but the defense with all the injuries was still really good. I think Buffalo just tries to build through the draft, and I've said this a lot. You may not have heard me say this over the years, but in the draft, rounds 1 and 2 are for TV. But how you build a Super Bowl team is winning rounds 3, 4, and 5. Those are the golden rounds. You got to get starters in rounds 3, 4, and 5. Now you don't have to pick in round 3, but was it 2 and a 4th, 3 and a 5th? Is that or is it 2 and a 4th? Is it 3 6th-round picks, or is it 3 5th-round picks? But I really see Houston getting very creative in later rounds. I could see Houston maybe drafting 3 or 4 players in round 4 and trying to get 1 or 2 starters, or getting a guy that could be wide receiver number 4. It is funny. Jerry, who put some comments in my mock draft, he keeps telling me, because I did 2 3-round mocks, and I had the Jets taking Ladd McConkey in the 3rd round, and another mock draft I had them taking Troy Franklin in the 3rd round. He's like, there's no way McConkey gets out of round 2. I don't know if you remember last year, but I had the Chiefs drafting Jalen Hyatt at 32. He went to the 3rd round, and I thought he was a 1st-round player. All you got to do is watch those 5 touchdowns against Alabama, and you're going to tell me he's not a 1st-round player? He went in the 3rd round, and I think he's a better prospect than both Troy Franklin and Ladd McConkey, and he got picked in the 3rd round. He didn't really play that much for New York, a team that needs help at receiver. So, but I personally really think that what Buffalo is going to do, and I think they're going to take a page out of Rams' book, and they're going to say, okay, we're going to add a bunch of picks. We're going to play a bunch of young dudes, and we're going to be fine, because they got the number one position locked down at quarterback, which Buffalo does. And they also have some young pieces on offense. The defense is going to be good. I mean, it needs some help. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, you got Ed Oliver. I think Von Miller contract is a mistake. I think it's a big mistake, and it's something they're paying for. But I mean, they got some pieces. I really, and by the way, you can use that 2025 second. Maybe there's a team in that wants to trade out of round 2 or maybe early round 3. It'll be hard to say, but I think Buffalo gets very creative in this draft. But I don't think that they trade back into the top 10. I know I said that there could be a team. I don't think that's going to be Buffalo. I think that they're going to do just the opposite. I think that they're going to do what the Rams did, and I could see them just stockpiling that roster with lower draft picks and just saying, hey, look, we're going to find guys that can play. But we'll see. Jets have zero excuses of all the moves they made if they missed the playoffs. I do too, Keaton. Even if it's an injury-riddled year, Rodgers was public about him not liking the way that the team was run. It was kind of funny. McCole Hardman, who scored a winning touchdown in the Super Bowl, was also adamant that he wasn't happy with the organization and the way things were. And Sauce Gardner's like, here's a guy who came into the building entitled. Yeah, but here's a guy that's also, won a Super Bowl the year before, won a Super Bowl this year. So, yeah, I mean, he comes in, and I get Aaron Rodgers came in with a ring too, but, I think maybe he thought that but here's the drill, is that there's been rantings from visible players about the way the Jets organization's been run. Robert Saleh not making the right adjustments on the offensive side of the ball. The defense is world class, but I love this guy. Yeah, and by the way, who knows what Minnesota? By the way, Minnesota. I mean, it looks like they're going to go all in with quarterback. By the way, they don't pick again till the fourth round. So like after they take a quarterback, who knows what? Seriously, Minnesota, nobody knows how good or bad Minnesota is. I'm on the thought process because I think the defense may get better, but they lost their best player. I love Daniel Hunter. I love Daniel Hunter. By the way, what a good move getting Daniel Hunter, and now you bring in Diggs, and we'll find out what Houston does in the draft because I've been doing a lot of mocks. I've been going 2 and 3 rounds. And a lot of these mocks I'm doing, I have the Houston Texans getting some help on that defensive line, and who knows what they could do. But yeah, you never know. You never know what that pick's going to be because you could see. Look, you're banking a lot. Let's just say they trade up to 3 or 5. You don't have a pick again until 4. You lost your best defensive player. You can make a strong case that Minnesota's going to take a step back. So, Keaton, as long as Rodgers stays healthy, you're probably right. That's okay, though, because Salah can come home and be the lion. I know you're saying that kind of tongue-in-cheek, Funk, but if Aaron Glenn leaves for a position, I'd love to see Salah in Detroit. I sent you a DM, and get a hold of me because I want to put us in a group chat and about how I want to do it because I want it to be very interactive, where all of us will not only pick trades, but all of us will have veto power, and I also want a veto power in trades, and I want us to organize possible trade scenarios because I have several I think that are going to happen. So, but yeah, respond to that, and I want to put us in a group chat together because I have some plans on how I want to do it. But yeah, I'm glad that you'll come on despite your jealousy of my fantastic hair, incredible good looks, and that my mock draft is way better than yours. However, I want to say this. If you haven't had a chance to check out Keaton's mock draft, this last one he did was phenomenal. I loved it. Yeah, Funk. The days of, it takes five years for us, that's over. The Houston Texans went from having the number 2 pick overall to winning a playoff game. The Detroit Lions went from a 3-win team to 1.5 quarters of being in a Super Bowl. You draft right and you get the right picks in the right spots. And by the way, you can draft a quarterback or you can acquire one in free agency or you can acquire, or technically it's trade in golf. There's different ways to do it. But and by the way, because of these moves, I think that there's going to be some movement in the top 10. I'm specific, Minnesota, I think is a given. But is there another team that can make a move into the top 10? And there could be. I see a lot of Ryan Leaf and Caleb Williams. I saw a perfect nickname for him, at least a funny one, because then Peyton is now LGBT. Yeah, I saw the pink fingernails and the pink phone, and so it's kind of funny because I chew my nails. Okay, a couple months ago, before I moved to Vegas, I got a manicure and they put that clear paint on, and I was like kind of looking at but I'm and by the way, like once it wore off, like I started trimming my nails. It's something I'm working on trying to quit, but here's the deal. Chicago's a tough sports town. You know this. By the way, it's not the best example, but I watched enough of that Manziel special. He says the one thing is that going into a locker room, it was always one of the best experiences of my life in high school and college. But when I went into the Browns locker room for the first time, I really was expecting, I'm paraphrasing this, by the way. I was expecting a feeling of camaraderie and brothership and love. And it wasn't like that. It was like going into an office, and I think that when you're a big time player in high school coming into college, it's different than being a big time player in college going into the pros. And I think Caleb Williams is really, I'm gonna level with it. I just don't see this working, man. Number one, from what I'm hearing, Justin Fields, a lot of Bears players inside the locker room really loved the kid because he worked hard. He wasn't a me guy, and he was a tough dude. I have a hard time seeing Caleb Williams walking into the Chicago Bears locker room, a team. What's the one Super Bowl that the Bears won? What do they talk about? The 85 Bears. Are they talking about McMahon was a crazy dude, but nobody questioned his toughness. Caleb Williams crying to mommy after a game with pink fingernails. How's that going to work in a town like Chicago? This is still a defensive-minded team. Hey man, look, I'm trying to take good care of my nails because I know that it doesn't look that good. I chew my nails, but yeah, I'm working on it. But yeah, I've never heard that, but it's awesome. Tasman Herd, Louis Z. Zamet going to be a stud. By the way, for those of you who don't know who Louis Z. Zamet is, he's I think an Australian rugby player signed with the Chiefs. They had a workout. He ran a 4.43. Chiefs are going to use him on offense. I'm not sure he's going to make the team, to be honest with you, Tasman, but I'm hoping that it ends up being a positive. We'll have to wait and see. I'm excited about it. It's going to be a thing in preseason. It's going to be very fun to watch. There's a lot in preseason I'm going to be really excited for. I want to see Hendon Hooker play for the Lions, and how much is he going to play? I mean, that's going to be exciting. I'm looking forward to seeing a lot of these rookie quarterbacks. So. Round 1 sells tickets and jerseys. Rounds 2 and 3 need to be solid, high-end starters. Day 3 needs to get a few contributors. Exactly. And you need to get guys that can start in rounds 3, 4, and 5. That's how you win a Super Bowl. So when I look at a team like maybe Buffalo that's got a lot of picks in the 4th, 5th, and 6th round, by the way, that was a lot of the Rams' success, was that they got a lot of starters in the 4th, 5th, and 6th rounds. Now, is Puka Nakuda, I'm butchering the name, I know, are the Bills going to get a Pro Bowl wide receiver in rounds 5? No. But is there a chance that that the Bills can get some really good quality starters in rounds 4, 5, and 6 with all that draft capital? Yeah, they can. And I fully expect them to trade back into maybe late in the 3rd round. And that's kind of what I think they're going to do, because that's what I thought the Rams do. Now, could they make a big move like the Trek reviewer said and try to trade into the top 10, maybe make a move with Arizona? I think Arizona's unrealistic because they need a wide receiver more than the Bills do, but could the Bills do that? Sure. And the reason why is that the Houston Texans did it. Never know. Oh God, Tate. Oh, he's Welsh. Okay, I'm sorry. I thought he was Australian, but he might be Welsh, but isn't the rugby team Australian? I thought he played for an Australian team. I could be wrong about that. But yeah, you're right. Day 2 looks really good. So I literally, for the last hour or two, actually it was last hour and a half before I started on the live stream, I'm working on my mock draft. So what I do is I do a 2-round mock, and I'm doing trades in round one. I have a massive trade happening in round one I've never mocked before, and it makes sense to me. I'm not going to reveal what it is because I really want you to check it out for Monday. And because of this trade, I'm having problems of the rest of the mock going well in rounds one, because what I'm trying to do is that how will round one affect round two? Because if you trade, for example, a first and a second round pick to get into round one, in the second round, is there a player that you may have been able to get that's comparable, or, hopefully I'm ranting. I feel like I'm not making sense. So hopefully I am. So when I did my 2-round mock, I did multiple 3-round mocks to make sure. Okay. For example, every 2-round mock, I think Dallas in round 2 should take Trey Benson, the running back out of Florida State. And I've been mocking that pretty consistently. So does Dallas want to make a move in round 1 that would get rid of that round 2 pick? Or round 2, they need help at running back. Trey Benson, I think, would fit like a hand in a glove for Dallas. There's a few other picks in rounds 2 that I've been looking at and saying, oh, yeah. Philly at pick 50, the tackle out of Yale. I think he's from Nigeria. That's a Philly pick. I really like it, even though the mock draft system I'm using thinks it's a reach, but I like it. It's a move Philly, I think, would make. They couldn't make that move. Remember, Philly picks at 50 and 53. And the reason why I say that is every mock draft I've done, I've seen Philly take players at 50 and 53. So is it likely that Philly, without a 3rd-round pick, wants to make a move up in round 1? No. So, but yeah, you're right. I'm looking at some really, really good players in the 2nd round. And it's kind of funny. Like I don't know how much you listened or didn't, but I did the 3-round mocks. Ladd McConkey, a lot of people have in the 1st round. I had him going in the third. Troy Franklin, I've kicked out of a lot of mock drafts in the first 2 rounds. And he's a guy I love. I was thinking he'd go in the 1st round, didn't run good at the combine. He also weighed 173, which was, I think, a major red flag. Hatter's House. Welcome, Hatter's House. Okay, so the last mock I actually did that. No joke, about 20 minutes before I went live, I'm playing around. And the way it works is I have a notebook with scratch paper. I have a notebook with some notes. And then I write down all the trades that I do, because I just want to make sure that, like, when I see it on the computer and then when I write it down and then when I say it makes sense. The last 2-round mock draft I did, I had the Lions moving up for Latu because I had Latu kind of falling in this draft. And I'm like, what's the team that would trade up for Latu? I'm like, oh, yeah, Detroit. And the spot that I'm not going to say who, but I will say this, somewhere in the 20s. I don't think Detroit, and here's another thing, Detroit, remember 2 years ago they traded up for Jameson Williams, almost forgot the name. I didn't see that. I thought it was a mistake. They traded up 20 spots was it 20 spots in the 1st round? Is that right? Somebody have to quote me. You tell me, you're a Lions fan. Is there a chance that Detroit, who knows what the fuck they're going to do in the draft? Are you going to tell me? I talked the Trek reviewer. I mentioned all these teams. Are you going to tell me somebody like Jared Verse or Layate Latu at pick number 14 where the Saints need to trade down and get some picks? Or are you going to tell me a team like Detroit wouldn't make them an offer? The Colts at 15, maybe. Detroit could easily pick. By the way, like if you're using the Jimmy Johnson chart like I am, Seattle at pick 16 equals 1,000 points. Detroit at 29, 640, and 61's 292. So that's, if I'm doing my math right, it's 932. That's 60 points. That's a 4th round pick. I mean, seriously. And by the way, would Detroit give up a next year number 3 to make a move like that? I think so. I'm not tongue in cheek about Sally's from Dearborn, the city, right? Yeah, I know. I know he's from the area. When we brought in Campbell, a lot of people were upset when we didn't get Sala. I didn't know that, but I did know Sala's from the area. So, I seriously, I wouldn't mind it at all. And by the way, if the Jets don't make the playoffs, he's going to be gone. I could see Aaron Glenn, who got some interest as a head coach. I don't see it, but and you remember last year, I was adamant that the Lions should have got rid of him. I thought it was a mistake, and I mean they got to an NFC Championship game. So I also think that even though I don't know if he has any college experience, you've kind of noticed that some of the college coaches are leaving to come to the pros, and I think that there's a good chance that you're going to see just the opposite, where you're going to have college programs say, look, I know you don't have any previous college coaching experience, but if you come in from the NFL, it puts us in a position that we can sell our kids that they're getting coached by NFL players. So you get NFL coaching in lieu of maybe getting, instead of getting, I'm making up numbers, by the way, instead of getting, hey, we're offering you $200,000, but you can get $500,000. Well, you get $200,000 and you're going to get coached by Aaron Glenn, who coached for Detroit as a defensive coordinator for the last couple of years. I really think that we're going to see that trend because I mean you're going to see a lot of Power 5. And I'm throwing a number out there. I mean, how many Power 5 coaches were brought in this year? I think it's somewhere between 10 and 15, and you're going to see it next year. And if you're one of these schools and you have a Power 5 program and you need to hire a head coach, why wouldn't you bring in a guy like Aaron Glenn? So I thought, okay, so he played for, okay, yeah. I keep mocking Steelers trading out of the first round to get an early second and later second or early third every time it works. Yeah, so my Tasman, if you haven't had a chance, check out my mock draft. I have the Steelers and Cardinals trading going. They flip first and third round picks, and to me it makes a lot of sense. It was funny. My buddy Corey, aka the Red Sea, he hated the move, which I was kind of surprised about. Because when I look at the Arizona Cardinals, what's their biggest problem? Well, rushing passer. Well, you get Jared Verse at 20. I was like, oh man, you hit a home run. He's like, no, I don't like it. I was like, oh wow, okay. It works good for the Steelers because I have them taking Jackson Powers Johnson, who I think absolutely is a Steeler player, and you have a hole at center. Boom, there you go. But Jackson Powers Johnson, I do think is a second round player, not a first rounder. But yeah. And by the way, if you don't mind, I don't know if you put it in the description, where would you have them trading? Because I could see them trading with Arizona going 20 and 27. Where would you have Pittsburgh trading out at? I'm looking at some teams here. I'm thinking maybe Carolina, 33 or 39. God, I have a hard time picturing Houston giving up two numbers. Where would you have the Steelers? Let me rephrase. Who do you have Pittsburgh trading with in the second? Because I could see Pittsburgh trading down with Detroit. Detroit would love if Latu, or Verse is available at 20. I could see Detroit making a move from 29 to 20. That would make a lot of sense. I'd love the Arizona. So the Arizona-Pittsburgh trade would work perfect because Pittsburgh would flip-flop with Arizona in the first and the third round, so there's no additional draft picks that are lost. Pittsburgh picks twice in the third round, so I don't know if Pittsburgh really wants to get out of round one, but I could see that. Arizona is a team that has 7 picks in the first 104 picks. They have 3 third-round picks, so I could see them being very, very, very happy trading back into the second or maybe up in the first. Detroit's always a team that's fun during draft time, and I want them to get fun and creative just for entertainment purposes. By the way, I will be live in 20 days. I'm going to do the first round live completely. So I'll be here. Hopefully you will be too. And there will be some guests on. Brian, a.k.a. the talent, a.k.a. the great one, Gooch. He's good. He said he's going to be in. We'll see if he's going to be in for the whole time or not. So, but I'm done. Who do you have them going in the second with? That's exactly what I'm thinking too, because now Tampa Bay could go interior offensive line. Tampa Bay has 2 picks in the third round. I forgot about Atlanta. Atlanta picks 74 and 79 in the third round. Atlanta's a team that can definitely trade up back into the 20s. I did a mock draft where Atlanta trades back to 32 with Kansas City. So, yeah, I named several teams there, but Miami definitely would want to trade down. I could see Pittsburgh wanting to trade down. Miami picks at 21. Philly at 22 has 2 second-round picks, no third-round draft pick. I think Philly, if there's not a corner that they like at 22, could definitely trade down. They're stacked on edge rush, so would they want to trade down with a team like Detroit or Buffalo? Sure, why not? I don't think they would trade down, but a team like maybe Cincinnati, and I say that because Cincinnati picks 18. Cincinnati has 2 picks in the third round, and I think that they're going to move Higgins, but you never know. I'm throwing that out there. The Rams at 19, who knows what they're going to do? I mean, could the Rams and the Lions make a trade again in the first round? Why not? If you're the Rams and you want to trade down, it would cost. I'm using the Jimmy Johnson chart. A lot of people don't, but let's just say you did. The value, well, the second round would be a little too much, but the Rams have multiple picks later in the draft, so that could easily work. Yeah, 32. Yeah, 32, 34, and 66 for 12 and 46. Yeah. Please make a move draft day. I want it to happen so bad. I would be happy with that. Means me staying up very late, but why not? Perry, what's up? Hey, Dan Funky, how are you, guy? Dan, what do you think of the Diggs deal with the Bills got a second-round pick? Well, yeah, I mean, it means that Buffalo really is I think, embracing the rebuilding. I think they're going to rebuild through the draft. I think they're going to get young. I think they realize that their window's closed. They're getting rid of some age. They're eating a lot of that cap. So, yeah. And I think it means for Houston, I think it means Houston's the team to beat in the AFC South. And they're really saying, and by the way, the weird thing is that, he's going to be a free agent in 2025. So it kind of makes you feel like it's a 1-year rental. But you don't lose much if you're Houston. And there's been some talk that Josh Allen and Diggs didn't get along. I don't know about that. I'm not gonna argue one way or another, but it symbolizes some things here, but I think the biggest thing that you're getting, and Perry, I don't know how much you caught on, but the days of waiting 3 to 5 years to build up an NFL team is over. We watched the Houston Texans go from picking second overall in the draft to winning a playoff game. And here's how you did it. You get your quarterback, then you go ahead and you get some help. And so I think there's going to be a team move up into the top 10 that's going to say the same thing. I kind of shot down the Trek reviewer because he made a trade proposal about going number 4 overall for Marvin Harrison Jr. And I'm like, it ain't, Arizona, they need a receiver more than Buffalo, so there's no point. But is there a chance that there is a team that could trade up to get somebody? Yeah. Houston did it, and they won a playoff game. They're favored to win the South, and they're probably a threat. They're probably I think they're a legitimate threat to be one of the teams to dethrone Kansas City if you're a divisional favorite. Yeah. I wonder how Diggs is going to react because he's not going to be the number one guy. I think I hope if he's smart, he knows he's going in there not being the number one guy. So, what's good, Barry? All right, we have some love here. Carolina. Okay, so you've just been doing it multiple times. Yeah, all 3 of those teams could do it. All 3 of those teams could do it. And I've mocked Carolina jumping in. I mocked Arizona jumping out, and I've done a few mocks. And there we go. Sorry, guys. Sorry, guys. Sorry. Streamyard gets a little goofy sometimes. So, maybe the Cowboys might take a center. They did that with a center before that. People thought was a reach. It's actually funny because the last center they had was, I called him Tyler Badass, and I forget what team he went to. They actually made a 4th round trade with the Eagles of all teams to get him. And I was like, it's kind of funny. Philly is responsible for the Cowboys having a starting center and pretty good player. And by the way, they do have a hole there. They also have a hole at right tackle, which I've been mocking most of the time. But center something, yeah. Jackson Powers Johnson could definitely. By the way, he would be available at 24, and he might be a reason why. If I'm Pittsburgh, I might take Jackson Powers Johnson at 20 instead of waiting. So, Perry says the Falcons need weapons or O-line to help Cousins. The O-line is okay, not great, but I don't think the O-line's a problem. And I think that what you're doing is, remember Drake London, he was the 8th overall pick a couple of years ago. You still got Kyle Pitts, who's just a tight end with limitless potential. You got John Robinson and the backup running back. I'm drawing a blank on his name. 5th round pick out of Utah, went for 1,000 yards his rookie year. So I think you're okay. Your biggest problem if you're the Falcons is getting after the quarterbacks. So, but yeah, I think so too, man. I think so too. I think Diggs. He just got frustrated. Diggs just got frustrated, and and by the way, I think that this could end up being like a win for both teams. Now, can they make the next step? I mean, they played Baltimore tough last year, but Baltimore's clearly the better team. Okay. Did they advance up where they can compete with Baltimore or Kansas City? Because I can make a case that both teams took steps backwards. By the way, if you're a Chiefs fan, you're like, oh, Chiefs didn't take a step backwards. They've already lost multiple starters. L'Jarius Sneed, their best defensive back, their left tackle. Chiefs currently don't have a left tackle. They're hoping Wanda Morris. Hoping he is a 4th-round pick last year that played a little bit, but I don't think he's really the answer. They lost somebody else. I'm drawing a blank. Oh, yeah, Mike Edwards. He left. I forget what team he went to. But if you're a Chiefs fan, you're going to say, no, we got Hollywood Brown. It's like, no, overall, the Chiefs, I think Chiefs took a step back. Baltimore definitely took a step back. So if you're the Houston Texans, I think you got to say, look, our team's young. Our team's talented. We added to it. We're ready. Do you think McDermott is gone at the season's end? Houston seems to be going all. So I really think that what Buffalo's doing, and I really think the course of action, because they have 10 draft picks, but 6 of them are in rounds 4, 5, and 6. You know what? Let me just pull this up exactly so I can tell you exactly. Buffalo has 2 4th-round picks, 3 5th-round picks, and 2 6th-round picks. I firmly believe that they are going to get very creative in this draft, but I really think that what they're going to do is try to replace all the players that they lost with a bunch of rookies. And how hard is that going to be? The Rams did it successfully, and keep in mind the Rams story is a little weird because they went all in for a Super Bowl, lost all those players, won 4 or 5 games next year. Then they built the team up with a bunch of rookies, and they gave Detroit. That was a great game. I think Detroit had a better team. I think they deserve to win. I'm not trying to make it sound like I'm taking anything away from Detroit. But let's be honest. The Rams gave them a good fight. Rams are a playoff team, and they did it with a bunch of rookies. So if you're the Bills, I really think that that's what you're doing. 9-10 wins might not be enough. It might be a time where McDermott needs to move on. And by the way, I think McDermott would be an excellent coach. McDermott, it might just be his time's done. We'll see what happens. But Buffalo doesn't get to the playoffs. McDermott's done. Houston is now forced in the AFC, and they showed the blueprint on how to go from being a team with the 2nd pick overall to being a team that's fighting for a Super Bowl. You saw it. It happened almost overnight. Teams are going to try to emulate this because it's a copycat league. Wouldn't mind if my Pats trade back to Minnesota, gets picks 11, 23 next year's first. We need an LT and a wide receiver. Could always get a could always get a quarterback late first round, early second if they trade back. So, by the way, please check out my mock draft, even though I'm going to reveal this. That's exactly what I have New England doing, is trading with Minnesota and getting 11-23 in next year's number 1. And I could also see them trying to get a left tackle in this draft as well. And by the way, Keaton, this is exactly what I want you here for, is that you would do the Patriots pick, and what I would want you to do is come on the show and say, okay, here's the trade I'm proposing. Does it work or not? And then me and Big Chief Sean had veto power. I mocked that same exact trade in my draft. So for me, it works. So, But I would see getting I think left tackle you could get at 36, and then wide receiver you may be able to get one later in the round. At Keaton, do you like Brian Thomas Jr.? What wide receivers and offensive tackles, if you want a trade back? What wide receivers could the Bills get in the later round? So I know you're asking Keaton those questions, Perry, but I do want to point out that I had Xavier Legette going to the Buffalo at 60, and I put this, and I did this before the trade, so I still had Diggs on the team, but I thought a guy like Xavier Legette, who could be available at 60, there's going to be receivers that some teams think could be first-round players that are going to fall. Troy Franklin's a guy that I thought early on would be like a top 25 pick. Cost himself some money at the combine. Keon Coleman, the Florida State wide receiver, didn't run well. Cost himself some money at the combine. A lot of receivers really, really played well. A guy like Ricky Pearsall out of Florida was a guy who ran a lot better. He was a guy a lot of people thought had second, third round grade. All of a sudden went to the combine and came, a lot of people thought he could be a guy at the end of the first round. Somebody like Kansas City, maybe Baltimore at 30 could get him. I think so, Perry. I think the Bills trade out of round one, and I really do. I think they stockpile their team with young talent and just say, hey, look, we got a lot of young, let's just rebuild with youth. You have a lot of picks. You don't have one in the third round. Where they're picking, I really think that they could trade down a few spots and get some extra draft picks. And then I could see them getting very creative in rounds 3, 4, and 5. It's the B in the Back Talk Brothers. The great one. The talent. Oh man, Gooch, what is up, brother? So, Keys shot me a text. He said he would come on, but he is jealous how much better looking I am than him, and he also loves my mock draft. So, man, it's always good to see Gooch here. Always good to see Gooch here. Yeah, I don't know about next year, Perry. I think it'd be good for this year. You don't have a third round pick, and I really think that the Bills got a lot of holes. I don't see a big trade up early, but I really think that there's a lot of good players later in this draft. It was a Yasmin, I forget who it was, but somebody put in second round looks really good, and it does. I can see the Bills getting out of round one, trying to trade down to get a second and a third. I mocked a few trades like that. I could see Buffalo moving up a little bit. I don't think they're going to move up into the top 10. I talked about some teams moving into the top 10. I don't see Buffalo one of them. If I'm Buffalo, I lost so much that I really want to try to get maybe 3 or 4 starters in this draft and then some good depth. So that's what that's kind of what I see Buffalo doing. I think if anything, they're a trade down candidate, not a trade up candidate. But we talked about a few teams that could be looking to trade down. Seattle would love to trade down. Pittsburgh, I could see trading down. Who knows what the Rams are thinking? Miami at 21 definitely wants to trade down. The Saints at 14 definitely wants to trade down. So, yeah. Got some love here. At Perry, I really like A.D. Mitchell and Brian Thomas, guys that have size and separate, which is something we really need. I like Legette, who we also get in a second. Oh, I'm sorry, man. I was stuck on the Bills, so I'm like, why are you talking about Bills? But he's talking about Patriots. Energy drinks have much more kick than coffee. I'm quickly running out of steam. I'm embarrassed to admit that, but I'm quickly running out of steam. But yeah, I mean, now Brian Thomas, I don't think falls into a second, but Adonde Mitchell is a guy that I've had mocked multiple times in round 2. So yeah, I mean, Keys has some jealousy. Guys, I'm going to wrap this up a little earlier than I was planning. The coffee. I haven't had coffee in a while. It's a little chilly today in the desert. Very windy, a little chilly. Thought coffee would kind of be warming me up, but I found myself kind of drained. Been a busy day, but listen. So I'm going to end this show a little shorter than normal, but Keaton said in the chat that he would be available tomorrow for the interactive mock, or Tuesday for the interactive mock. Big Chief Sean's confirmed, so it's going to be fun. Yeah, I'm going to cut this a little shorter than normal. I apologize. I'm just a little more worn out than I was expecting. Is Bauer stock still falling? Perry asks. I think so. I've been mocking him in the late teens. I had a buddy of mine, Jerry. He says he made a very compelling argument that he should be 10 to the Jets. I don't see it, man. I don't, but it wouldn't surprise me. But in my opinion, I think he goes later. If the Jets take Bowers at 10, I wouldn't be surprised. But I think he's going to fall a little short. I think he's going to fall down. I do. I've seen a lot of mock drafts where he goes 10 to the Jets, though. So, guys, I apologize. I was really planning on having a little more energy. Coffee's just not giving me enough kick. I should have gone with an energy drink, and Tuesday I will do so. Thank you for the comments. I apologize. I'm going to cut this a little shorter than I was expecting. Interactive live mock draft will happen on Tuesday. If Keaton follows through, and Big Chief Sean confirmed to me. Actually, I shot him a text, so he confirmed that. So interactive live mock, and I encourage you to join, because you guys will have veto power. If we make a trade and you guys don't like it, it won't happen. So it's going to be a lot of fun. So I encourage everybody to join Tuesday for my interactive live mock draft with Keaton and Big Chief Sean. Guys, have a fantastic weekend. Mock draft Monday. I'll have my latest video. It's only going to be a 1-round mock draft, but I do have some trades, including a massive one that I've been kind of playing around with that I think you guys are really going to like. But I hope to get your impact or hear your feedback in the comments, and also on Tuesday. Have a great weekend. I look forward to seeing everybody back on Mock Draft Monday for the video, and I hope to see you all back for Tuesday's live first-round mock draft, interactive live first-round mock draft. Have a great weekend. Don't forget, check out the description. My video is in the description, plus my social media. See everybody back on Tuesday.